A note before you begin. This book contains language and themes that some may find offensive, disturbing, or emotionally raw. None of it is accidental. The profanity, cruelty, and discomfort are part of the world these characters inhabit, and sometimes part of the world we do too. If you're looking for sanitized dialogue or moral clarity, you won't find it here. What you'll find is honesty, messy, flawed, and unfiltered. Proceed with open eyes and a resilient heart. The Unforgiving Son, Dark Tales of Survival and Satire, by Fray Emiro Salazar Ortiz. Forward. When I first began to notice the harsh realities of the streets around me, I couldn't ignore the stark contrast between the bustling world and those who were left to fend for themselves in its shadows. The Unforgiving Son is my attempt to shine a light, an unforgiving, relentless light, on the absurdities and injustices of our society. Through the lens of dark humor and stark imagery, this book aims to provoke thought, challenge perceptions, and perhaps, in some small way, ignite a spark of empathy and change. Introduction. In a world where the sun is often seen as a symbol of life and warmth, the Unforgiving Son presents a different perspective. Here, the sun is an unyielding force, mercilessly shining down on the overlooked and forgotten. This book is a collection of scenes, raw, absurd, and painfully real, that depict the harsh realities faced by many in our society. Through dark humor and poignant commentary, each scene serves as a stark reminder of the need for empathy and action. Scene 1. Homeless Indigenous women and girls performing for coins. A group of Indigenous women and girls, dressed in ragged, dirty clothes, perform a dance under the harsh, relentless sun. Their movements lack rhythm, reflecting their exhaustion and malnutrition. Coins are tossed into a can by indifferent passers-by. Under the blazing sun, they dance, a dance devoid of rhythm, energy, and joy. Their bodies, weakened by hunger, move in a desperate attempt to earn a few coins. The sun, once a symbol of life and warmth, now feels like an unforgiving overseer, casting its harsh light on their plight. Their clothes, tattered and stained, tell a story of displacement and despair. They are invisible to the world, their native dialect a barrier that isolates them further. The coins clink in the can, a cruel reminder of their worth in this society. One day, a pimp approaches, offering a twisted escape they can't even comprehend. Their cheeks flush with shame, their eyes cast down, they continue their dance, a never-ending nightmare under an unyielding sun. This scene starkly highlights the intersection of poverty, displacement, and cultural isolation. The relentless sun symbolizes the oppressive societal structures that these women and girls must endure. Their dance, devoid of rhythm and energy, mirrors the exhaustion and hopelessness that comes with their daily struggle for survival. The approach of the pimp adds a layer of exploitation and danger, emphasizing the vulnerability of those who are marginalized. This image and commentary serve as a powerful reminder of the need for empathy, understanding, and action to address these deep-rooted issues. Scene 2. The Neglected Dog. It's a rainy Monday morning, around 7 a.m. People walk down the street, lost in their own unresolved troubles and worries. An interbred dog, scraggly and dirty, drinks rainwater from a filthy puddle by the sidewalk. His ribs protrude from malnutrition, and his right front leg appears broken, possibly from a passing vehicle. As the rain subsides, the sun rises triumphantly, shining harshly upon the unfortunate animal. The relentless sun burns down on his irritated, rash-covered skin, causing him to scratch his open wounds with a filthy paw, worsening his condition. Thick, milky pus oozes from his infected wounds, attracting flies that hover over the foul-smelling drainage. Out of the blue, a beggar appears, dragging a noisy recycling bag filled with tin cans and glass bottles. Startled, the dog barks at the intruder. With a self-satisfied smirk, the beggar kicks the dog, further injuring its already broken leg. The dog lets out a pitiful cry, but the few bystanders who notice remain indifferent, continuing on their way without uttering a word in defense of the poor creature. This day is like any other for the mangy cur, wandering the streets in search of scraps and a bit of companionship from other strays. Only a miracle could save him from a premature death. Will someone with a kind heart finally do what is right for this poor sentient being? On a dreary Monday morning, the street bustles with people too absorbed in their own worries to notice an insignificant mutt. As the rain gives way to the sun's triumphant rise, the poor dog's plight becomes evident. His body, a testament to neglect and suffering, now lies exposed under the merciless sun. The sun, once a symbol of hope, now an unyielding tormentor, exacerbates his agony. The flies seem more concerned about his condition than any passerby. In steps the beggar, a dark shadow of hopelessness himself, delivering another blow to the already battered creature. The dog's pitiful cry goes unheard in a world too busy to care. This scene, much like any other day in the life of this forgotten stray, begs the question, will compassion ever pierce through the indifference of society? This scene paints a poignant picture of neglect and indifference. The relentless sun, shining down harshly, symbolizes the unyielding and often cruel nature of societal neglect. The dog's suffering, ignored by passers-by and worsened by an equally downtrodden beggar, highlights the brutal reality faced by many forgotten beings. The contrast between the dog's visible pain and the indifference of the people around him serves as a stark reminder of the need for empathy and action. It calls into question our collective responsibility toward the vulnerable and the often overlooked. Scene 3. The tragic tale of Rosa Emma. Rosa Emma, an elderly woman with a history of beauty and heartbreak, stands under the blazing sun, looking lost and forlorn. Her once striking appearance is now a shadow of its former glory, marred by years of hardship. Rosa Emma, affectionately known as Mama Emma by her son, once turned heads with her beauty. Born in a small, kind-hearted town, she inherited her mother's captivating features. Men talked about her in bars, and she didn't need makeup to stand out. At the market, she sold aromatic herbs and read tarot cards for anyone daring enough to ask, a skill passed down by her all-knowing grandmother. Life was idyllic until it was shattered one fateful night. Invited to a party by the town's lecherous mayor, Rosa Emma was drugged and defiled. The mayor's henchman delivered her to his office, where her innocence was stolen. She fled to the capital, leaving behind the picturesque town of Rosalandia. There, she married and had a son, but tragedy followed her like a shadow. Years later, her son invited her to help with his newborn twins. What seemed like a good idea turned into a nightmare. Rosa Emma was reduced to a maid and caregiver, laboring under the unforgiving sun. Her son's love turned to disdain, and she endured physical and psychological abuse. Exhausted and broken, she escaped one night. Wandering the streets, she found companionship among sex workers who took her in and taught her their trade. The next morning, she donned skimpy clothes and high heels, ready to survive under the same relentless sun that once lit her idyllic town. Passers-by looked at her with disdain, unaware of her tragic past. Her makeup melted under the cruel rays, but she pressed on. Hours later, a car pulled over. The driver asked, "How much for half an hour?" Rosa Emma, hungry and desperate, replied, 50,000 pesos. She got in the car, and that was the last anyone saw of her. Her son, consumed by remorse, searched through hospitals, morgues, and public corners of the city until he found her. Rosa Emma's body lay in a garbage dump, brutally beaten and stabbed. The son, once a silent witness to her beauty, now bore down on her tragic end. This poignant scene captures the brutal reality of Rosa Emma's life, from her idyllic beginnings to her tragic end. The sun, once a symbol of warmth and life, becomes a relentless force highlighting her suffering and society's indifference. Her journey from beauty to despair underlines the harshness of societal norms and the unforgiving nature of life. The sun's relentless presence throughout her life and death serves as a stark reminder of the unyielding struggles many face, often unnoticed and unacknowledged. Scene 4. The unfortunate turn of events for Leoncio Pacacosa. Leoncio stands at the entrance of a restaurant, holding a loudspeaker. He is dressed in a multicolor clown costume with a colorful wig, makeup, a red nose, white gloves, and big shoes. Despite his bright outfit, his expression is one of deep shame as people from the neighborhood pass by, recognizing him. The sun's harsh light illuminates the scene, emphasizing the contrast between his cheerful costume and his internal struggle. Leoncio Pacacosa was born on November 30th, 1978, at 6:01 a.m., just as the sun rose triumphantly, casting its harsh light upon the unfortunate baby. The hospital, notorious for its sloppy and unethical medical practices, was staffed by poorly trained doctors and nurses. Many patients, including children as young as 2, lost their lives due to the hospital's negligence. After numerous lawsuits and rampant corruption among the board of directors, the hospital was permanently closed and became a haven for scums and thieves. When Leoncio's mother informed his father that she might be pregnant, he reacted violently, knocking her to the ground and beating her mercilessly. "That baby is not mine," he shouted. "You are a skank and should have it aborted." A kind neighbor rushed her to the emergency room, where she nearly miscarried. Despite the ordeal, she persevered and went through labor. However, the baby was on the brink of death as his umbilical cord had become entangled, cutting off the essential blood flow, oxygen, and nutrients needed for his survival. This caused permanent brain damage, convulsions, developmental delays, learning difficulties, and motor disorders throughout his life. The so-called doctor attending to Leoncio was later revealed to be a medical student who had botched several procedures, resulting in severe consequences for patients and tarnishing the hospital's reputation. As a result, Leoncio was mentally challenged for life. People claimed he would never amount to anything and would likely end up living in squalor, bumming around and eating from trash cans. Leoncio's mother worked as a recycler, laboring under the blazing sun and making very little money. She struggled to make ends meet, while Leoncio was taken to a daycare for single mothers with low incomes. One fateful day, Leoncio was left at daycare. After a while, he managed to toddle into the kitchen, where the caregiver was boiling water in a big pot. She got caught up watching a soap opera and forgot all about it. The pot, placed on a gasoline stove on the floor, was within reach of the poor toddler. Leoncio knocked over the pot of boiling water, and it splashed all over him. The hot liquid and steam burned him severely. The desperate toddler cried at the top of his lungs. The caregiver ran to the kitchen to find Leoncio badly burned and lying on the ground. Clueless about what to do, she didn't remove the clothing over the scald, so the burning continued. She didn't cool the burn with tap water either. Instead, she used ice, which worsened the situation. They sought immediate medical attention, but without money or health insurance, they were sent home with nothing but a dirty look. Leoncio suffered third-degree burns on the right half of his face. His skin turned charred black, dry, and leathery. The size and location of the burns severely affected his appearance, making him unattractive to anyone who met him, especially during puberty. His mother saw that he was struggling emotionally, dealing with the pressures of society. This led to mood swings, emotional outbursts, and tension at home. Leoncio underwent major changes in his identity and social life, facing confidence issues and mixed feelings about his sexuality, such as desire, confusion, and fear. He felt shame and guilt about his sexual urges, which hurt his self-esteem and made him overly concerned about his looks. Leoncio needed to work on accepting himself and overcoming negative thoughts to find a sense of purpose. He also dealt with anxiety, depression, and aggression. Accepting his body was a constant struggle. Leoncio liked a girl who lived 3 houses down from him, but she despised him. He felt rejected and undesirable, wishing he had never been born. Abandoned by his father, his mother blamed him for her misfortune, and now this girl wouldn't come near him. She found him repulsive because of his mental disability, half-burned face, and tattered, dirty clothes. Leoncio dropped out of school as his family needed money to survive. He spent countless hours wandering the streets looking for work, but everyone turned him down, unwilling to give him a chance. All he heard were offensive, derogatory, and abusive comments about him and his disability. He saw this as systemic exclusion and oppression of people with disabilities, expressed and reinforced through language. Hurtful words like retarded, moron, and idiot labeled him as a lesser human, deeply wounding his self-esteem. Leoncio's mother fell sick and couldn't work anymore. She felt weak, couldn't swallow food or sleep, and had tremors and sharp pains all over her body. Bedridden, nobody knew what was wrong with her. A restaurant owner, who had a son with Down syndrome, felt compassion for Leoncio after seeing him look for work. He offered Leoncio a job as a clown at his restaurant, announcing the daily menu on a loudspeaker to attract customers and help Leoncio's family through their rough patch. Leoncio started off fine in his new job, but he felt ashamed whenever people from the neighborhood saw him in that ridiculous multicolor costume with the colorful wig, makeup, red nose, white gloves, and big shoes. One day, while announcing the daily meals, he stood by the entrance, tightly holding the loudspeaker that was running out of battery. The waitress was busy placing lit candles on holders to scare away pesky flies. Leoncio accidentally placed a paper menu too close to one of the candles, starting a fire that spread rapidly. Everyone fled in fear. The restaurant burned down to ashes due to his carelessness. The owner went out of business and Leoncio lost his job, his only hope for a better future. Everything seemed bleak, but he still had one reason to keep going: his mother. Leoncio returned home only to find his mother in a worse condition than before, now bedridden and coughing up blood, seemingly from a respiratory infection. They couldn't afford medical care, and, to make matters worse, an eviction notice was pasted on their door. They hadn't paid rent for 3 months and were to be evicted by tomorrow morning. Everything they had worked for was falling apart. His mother was gravely ill. He had lost his job because of the fire, and now they were being kicked out of their home. Desperate and hungry, Leoncio held his mother's hand and promised her, "Don't worry, mother. I'll get you something to eat. Hang in there, I'll be back in a while." Wandering the streets aimlessly, he approached numerous people, explaining their dire situation, but they all stepped back in disgust. Nobody was willing to lend a hand, looking down on him with scrutinizing eyes and disapproving expressions. Unable to endure people's apathy any longer, and starving to death alongside his beloved mother, he looked up at the sun and screamed, "Why? Why us?" The sun, once a symbol of life and warmth, now felt like an unforgiving overseer, casting its harsh light on his misfortune. Without much thought and not contemplating the serious consequences, he stormed into a food joint, grabbing as much food as he could from several tables while swallowing large chunks. The shocked patrons created a commotion that attracted local authorities. 2 police officers arrived at the scene to find a frenzied Leoncio grabbing food. Despite being ordered to put his hands up, his hunger made him non-compliant. The situation escalated, leading to Leoncio being shot in the extremities, apprehended, and taken to the police station for questioning and subsequent processing. The crime was immediately reported, and victims provided detailed testimonies. The prosecutor filed charges, ensuring justice was served. The evidence was ample, and the victims and witnesses were credible. Leoncio faced a swift trial and was sentenced to 7 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The next morning in the prison yard, surrounded by high walls topped with concertina wire, prisoners exercised or loitered. Despite their confinement, the sun's rays penetrated the barriers, reminding them of its almighty power. A group started mocking Leoncio for his disability and appearance, exacerbating his self-consciousness and low self-esteem. One inmate approached him, asking, "How did you burn your face so horribly?" Leoncio's cheeks flushed with shame as he avoided eye contact. The inmate, feeling ignored, kicked Leoncio hard in the face, knocking out his teeth and causing him to lose consciousness. Security officials fired warning shots, picked up Leoncio, and took him to the infirmary, sending a portion of the prison into lockdown. The assailant was questioned and kept in segregation. Leoncio, seriously hurt, was eventually sent back to his cell. A public defender brought even more devastating news. His mother had been evicted and thrown onto the street while bedridden. She died a day later from malnutrition and severe sunburns due to prolonged exposure, her body ultimately failing under the relentless sun and lack of nourishment. Leoncio, devastated, broke into tears, shook uncontrollably, and collapsed. Upon regaining consciousness, he lay on his prison cot, feeling a void and questioning the point of living. With newfound determination, he asked himself how he could escape this nightmare. Suddenly, he heard a faint but clear voice whispering into his ear, an overhead beam, a rope, a noose, and a chair. Leoncio hanged himself in his cell as the sun set at 5:52 p.m. on April 21, 1993. He once said, "I came in with a sunrise and I expect to go out with a sunset." The coincidence was remarkable. His neck bore deep furrows from the ligature's constriction, his tongue protruded, and his body displayed multiple fractures and lacerations. Hanging suicides, often regarded as shameful, were linked to both justice and injustice. They are seen as a confronting display of resistance and a rebuke of uncaring relations and unmet needs. Death by hanging suicide was considered particularly shocking, and Leoncio was denied a proper burial. His corpse was discarded in a deep hole without tears or prayers. Those who died by hanging suicide were believed to haunt and torment those who humiliated and rejected them, seeking revenge for eternity. Leoncio's story is a stark portrayal of resilience against overwhelming odds. Born into a world that seemed determined to crush him, he faced relentless adversity from the moment he entered the world. The sun, once a symbol of hope and vitality, became an indifferent witness to his suffering. His journey highlights not only the struggles of living with a disability, but also the pervasive issues of societal neglect, systemic corruption, and economic hardship. Leoncio's life is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, even when faced with the toughest realities. The sun's harsh light throughout his life serves as a reminder of the constant battles faced by those marginalized and neglected by society. Scene 5. Grandpa Cakamucas. Grandpa Cakamucas was some weird creep who was just tired of being alive. He was not suicidal or anything like that, he just felt that he'd done a lot, seen a lot, like, let's wrap this shit up. That's an interesting way of putting it. Grandpa Cakamucas sounds like a character who's not exactly bitter or desperate, but rather worn down, like he's outlived the thrill of life. Almost like he's carrying the weight of too many memories, too many days stacked on top of each other. The detail that he wasn't suicidal is important. It makes him feel more like someone at the far edge of existence, watching the curtain fall, but not actively trying to pull it down himself. It's more a resigned curiosity. I've eaten the meals, heard the songs, kissed the lips, fought the fights. Is there really anything new left? Grandpa Cakamucas wondered. How many days are there exactly? He turned 73 years old, and people started to talk to him like he was a pet. It was fun for a while, though. He looked like a fucking goblin, and he knew it. It was terrifying. Grandpa Cakamucas stopped taking his heart medications, and he was asked why. He responded, "I don't want to be here anymore." People asked him, "How are you doing?" He replied, "Unfortunately alive." Grandpa Cakamucas was antisocial. He didn't want to meet any new people. Not one more person for the rest of his life. He was all set. They told him, "Grandpa Cakamucas, go and meet Leoncio." He said, "Fuck Leoncio. I already know everybody I need to know. I just want to watch my favorite TV show and fart." Grandpa Cakamucas lost his toupee. His breasts were sagging. He had a wart on his nose. He would snap at any minute. If the phone rang after 10 p.m., he'd go, "Will somebody answer that damn phone? And somebody better be dead." He was only able to do one activity a day. He said, "I'm not a teenager anymore." He had no waistline and could wear a belt anywhere in his body. Grandpa Cakamucas made all the wrong decisions. He got grosser the older he got. Look at his grotesque physique. He got new hair right above his ass. The worst thing that happened to him was constipation. He sat on the toilet and realized that his caca was bigger than his asshole. At a moment of no return, he started feeling these strong electric shocks on his legs. He'd go, He had no choice but to suck it back up, walk it out, and try to thin it down. Grandpa Cakamucas still had life left in his body, but he did not care about anything. It was a wonderful feeling. He even took pictures of himself completely naked. He thinks he may die with a peace gesture. He was a charmer and a player, and used to sweet-tooth women half his age. He was down for whatever, like a horny, crazy teenager. He'd go anywhere without even knowing where he was going to. He was even willing to set his own house on fire. Grandpa Kakamokas had ugly stuff growing out of him. Ear hair. Ladies don't like it. At the nursing home, nobody told him anything about the wisp brooms that would shoot out of the side of his head. He tried to get rid of them. He tried to pull them out. It's the most painful thing he'd ever done in his life. They were connected to his spinal cord. Grandpa Kakamokas was in the mall. He yanked at them. He lost motor skills for about an hour trying to call for help. His life was just a really long journey where he found out he mattered less and less and less every day. Another year went by, and Grandpa Kakamokas thought his life was going to start, and another year went by. He was not interested in harming people he did not like, because he was damn sure they would harm themselves pretty badly by their stupid and unwise decisions. He would be walking down the street, having a fine day, just to find that his knee would go on break. He looked like a chicken trying to make it back home. Grandpa Kakamokas used to lose things he had in his hand. He said, "I haven't seen my phone in a while. I should have somebody call and see if it rings." One time he spent half an hour at the airport parking lot, looking for his car before he realized somebody had dropped him off at the airport. He even tried to get into a car that looked like his. He even ripped his fingernails off because the door was still locked. Grandpa Kakamokas went to a restaurant, but he had forgotten his reading glasses, so he had to order what he thought they had. If he had a cheeseburger past 9 o'clock, it sounded like his stomach was re-killing the meat. It was embarrassing sitting around a bunch of friends, and your stomach is going to make stomach noises. And they asked him, "Is that your stomach?" "No, it's my ringtone." "Yeah, I downloaded the Dying Walrus tone." "Pretty realistic, huh? I got a call. I gotta go." Grandpa Kakamokas tried to do things he hadn't done in a while, only to find out a little bit too late he couldn't do them anymore, like running through the park, come across the fence, put his hands on top, throw his legs over, and keep running, not missing a beat, a little slower, a little fatter. Gravity got a pretty good hold of him at this point. Everything in his head, "Do not do it, you idiot." And everything in his heart said, "Give it one more try." Grandpa Kakamokas took off running for that fence. He could hear his heart beating in his ears. Just going, abort, abort. He got to that fence, put his hands on top, threw his legs over to go 2 feet high. And the fence was 3 feet high. Smashed into that fence. 10 seconds later, a 16-year-old boy hit upload. And he was then a viral sensation. Grandpa Kakamokas could not watch the medical shows anywhere or just a simple commercial of a medicine because if he listened too closely, he thought he had a problem. The symptoms were so vague. Do you have trouble sleeping at night? Find yourself lost in a mall parking lot looking for your car? Do you get tired after climbing 3 steps? Do you sometimes forget why you walked into the kitchen? Congratulations, you may have a rare neurological condition discovered only last week. He then thought he had mad cow disease. He had a walker, yearly physical checkup, and colonoscopy, meaning garden hose with camcorder shoved up your asshole. Those special times you realize you're getting older. That's when you realize you're not the target audience for Tinder anymore, you're the target audience for adult diapers. After every meal, Grandpa Kakamokas had to deal with food particles, which were trapped along his upper jaw dentures. So, to get rid of this food trapping, he ran his right index finger along the denture gum-colored base to dislodge the food particles which remained there, only to put them back in his filthy mouth and eagerly swallow them whole, as if they were the last bite of food left in the aftermath of a planetary cataclysm. He did this before his perplexed family, who stood in awe, unable to believe their eyes or comprehend the rationale behind such a grotesque display of distaste. Whenever Grandpa Kakamokas was cooking, his mischievous grandchildren would sneak extra ingredients into his dishes, ones that clashed with his original recipe, just to ruin the taste and laugh at the horrible grimaces he made in disgust. Grandpa Kakamokas kept pigeons in cages for meat. Each morning, he thrust his hand inside with sunflower seeds, peanuts, and breadcrumbs. The pigeons pecked at him hungrily, leaving his skin bloody. Half-blind, he never noticed. When he killed them, he fried their brains into scrambled eggs, a delicacy to him, but revolting to everyone else. Grandpa Kakamokas, being a deviant, dirty old man, had locked himself away on the top floor again. The curtains were drawn tight, the room stifling with the smell of dust and varnished wood. He sat swaying in his creaking rocking chair, the steady rhythm like a heartbeat gone wrong. But he was there for a reason. He was there to enjoy watching Chihuahua dogs in heat mate while he was touching himself inappropriately with his gnarled hands, twisted by arthritis. Those who caught a glimpse of him through a crack in the door never forgot the look in his eyes, hollow, ravenous, and fevered with thoughts no one dared name. His gnarled hands, twisted by arthritis, clutched the cane that never left his side. If anyone stepped too close, if anyone lingered long enough to witness him in that state, the cane would lash out with terrifying force. Outwardly, Grandpa Cacamocas remained the perfect patriarch, gentle smile, polished shoes, a voice dipped in honey. But behind closed doors, his rituals grew stranger, his fantasies darker, as though the rocking chair itself was rocking him deeper into a private abyss. His family's respect was his mask. Beneath it festered a solitude so vile it seemed to breathe in the shadows around him. His children adored him. None of them truly saw him, and he intended to keep it that way. Grandpa Cacamocas molested his granddaughter, who was having uncontrollable itching and burning sensation in her vagina due to pubic hair growing in her private area, with the excuse of applying a miraculous ointment down there to supposedly make her feel better. The girl told her mother what had happened, but the mother did not believe her or simply did not want to think it was true, because the mother had Grandpa Cacamocas on a golden pedestal in her naive mind and heart. Grandpa Cacamocas lay on his deathbed, his skin pale and thin as parchment, his breath rattling like a broken pair of bellows. Two of his grandchildren hovered nearby, not out of love or grief, but with their eyes fixed on the old leather wallet resting in the closet. The room was heavy with silence until the children swore they heard it, the unmistakable death rattle. A long, gurgling sigh. Then stillness. The grandchildren glanced at each other, wide-eyed not with sorrow, but with greed. They rushed to the closet, fumbling with the latch, yanking out the worn wallet as if it were treasure hidden in a pirate's chest. With clumsy fingers, they tore it open and found the few crumpled bills inside, pitiful remnants of a long, hard life. Smiling, they clutched their prize. To them, it wasn't the end of a man's story, but the beginning of a sweet feast. They darted out of the room, already dreaming of candies and lollipops from the store around the corner, while the old man's body lay silent behind them, his last breath stolen not by death alone, but by the greed of his own blood. If Grandpa Cacamocas had a last lesson to give, it was this: a lifetime of toil may well end in nothing sweeter than a handful of candy for those who outlive you. Afterward, as we reach the end of The Unforgiving Son, I hope these scenes have stirred something within you, whether it's discomfort, reflection, or a newfound empathy. The harsh light of the sun will continue to shine down on the world's injustices, but it's within our power to change how we respond. By acknowledging these realities and taking action, we can transform the oppressive heat into a force for positive change. Let this book be a call to awareness, compassion, and ultimately, a more just society. Acknowledgements. I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who supported me in the creation of The Unforgiving Son, to my family and friends for their unwavering encouragement and patience, to the people and animals who inspired these stories. Your resilience and spirit have left an indelible mark on my heart. And finally, to the readers, for opening your minds and hearts to these tales. May we all strive to bring a little more light and compassion into the world. About the author. Fray Luis Emiro Salazar Ortiz was born on February 11, 1979, at the Fray Bartolomé de las Casas Clinic in Bogotá, Colombia, and baptized by a Dominican friar at the parish of Our Lady of Chiquinquirá, a moment that marked the beginning of a life steeped in curiosity, creativity, and spiritual depth. Raised in a family that celebrated the arts, music, languages, and the mysteries of existence, Fray grew up with an open heart and a restless mind. He's not the kind of person who fits neatly into a box. Over the years, he's studied music at the Luis A. Calvo Academy, earned a degree in education from El Bosque University, trained in teaching English abroad through I2I Gatehouse Awards, and explored the intricacies of translation and interpretation at Javeriana University. His journey has been anything but linear, filled with highs and lows, moments of clarity and chaos, and encounters with people from every imaginable walk of life. Fray's life has been a kind of spiritual alchemy, turning pain into purpose, confusion into clarity, and darkness into light. He's faced the abyss and chosen not to jump, instead channeling his experiences into art, music, and storytelling. His compositions for classical guitar and piano carry echoes of both melancholy and resilience, while his book The Unforgiving Son, Dark Tales of Survival and Satire, pulls no punches. It's raw, controversial, and deeply honest, a reflection of the brutal realities many endure in a world tilted toward the powerful and indifferent to the vulnerable. But beneath the grit and satire lies a stubborn hope. Fray believes in the goodness of creation, in the possibility of change, and in the idea that we are all architects of our own destiny. His work is a call to wake up, to feel deeply, and to act with compassion, even when the sun is unforgiving. If you've made it this far, you're already part of the journey.